It's time for another episode of the Beach Brothers Show. It's time for another great episode of the Beach Brothers Show. I'm Seko Varner. I'm with my good friend Conrad. And on the very end is our good friend Jose. We want everybody to know the Beach Brothers Show loves you. We love the beach. We love Virginia. And we deal with Virginia business and politics. Conrad, as you know, is running for Virginia Beach City Council and Rose Hall seat. If you're interested in appearing on the show, Conrad is the person you get in contact with. And our gentleman who handles the business, our beach bully, is Jose Cruz. Jose is the person you get in contact with if you're interested in highlighting your business on the show. And I'm Seko Varner. I'm your producer. We want to give a shout out to Tally and Twine. Tally and Twine is one of our great sponsors. It's time for you to get a high quality watch built here in the Hampton Roads region in Portsmouth, Virginia. High quality timepieces. You can't get anything like this anywhere. Virginia made, Virginia blessed. It's time for you to get a Tally and Twine watch. All right, a little shout out for myself. I do credit repair, tax resolution, and now I lend private money. So if you're an investor and you're looking for some private money for a fixed asset or for your real estate investment, give me a call. I would love to take care of you. All right. Also, credit repair services. So all the information for my services will be below. Conrad, my friend, is running for the city council in Virginia Beach. So, why don't you talk a little bit about that, sir?
Well, great evening, Beach Brothers Show viewers. I'm Conrad Chesvina, candidate for Rose Hall seat on Virginia Beach City Council. I'm the council candidate who wants the city of Virginia Beach to directly elect district representatives. Representative democracy is a good form of democracy, and it helps reduce the icky residue from decades of virtually suspect government design. I also want Virginia Beach to take down its Confederate monument. The one city council is hosting a public comment about tonight, right now, at the convention center. The monument that says, Princess Anne Confederate Heroes, as if the Confederacy deserves reverence. Compare that to P-Town or Norfolk saying, our Confederate dead. I'm also the candidate who wants a strengthened Citizens Review Board. Our review board needs greater responsibility, greater access to the activities of the group it's monitoring. It needs real accountability, and it needs to be able to provide recommendations that the city follows. I'm the Virginia Beach Council candidate wanting policing of benign offenses reduced, like broken taillights, outdated registration, outdated tags, mild speeding, all which could be verified by onboard equipment and sent via citation. Otherwise, law enforcement creates encounters with the personal space of citizens, and civil asset forfeiture is always a threat. So go to Conrad Chesvina for Virginia Beach on Facebook, like the page, then go by raisethemoney.com/cchesvina and leave a modest donation to the same cause. Back to you, gentlemen.
All right, Conrad. Well, who do we have on the show with us tonight?
The guest tonight is Mr. Tony Goodwin. He's a candidate for mayor of Portsmouth, P-Town in the house, home to the Beach Brothers Show sponsored Tally and Twine. Mr. Goodwin is Portsmouth born and has lived in the 757 many years. He has a career in commercial real estate and hospitality industries. He's learned from many professional development courses in Hampton Roads area, as well as having served on commissions and boards, looking to take his community ideals to the next level. Mr. Goodwin is looking to be at the top of Portsmouth politics. And the Beach Brothers ask, why look to run for mayor of Portsmouth in 2020?
Well, thank you, gentlemen, for having me on the show tonight. And my whole reason for running for Portsmouth mayor is to basically make the city competitive in our region, in the Hampton Roads 757 region. It's been a long time that we've had a loss of vision for many years now, and so it's time to get back on to being ready to step out of this pandemic and get back in the front seat of being competitive.
Jose, let's fire up a question.
All right. Recently posted Protesters took to the streets surrounding the Portsmouth Confederate Monument, taking parts of it down and graffiti it. It injured a protester. Senator Lucas got involved. Senator Lucas got involved. You've long been a Portsmouth citizen. Tell us what you thought of the city that night and what you think needs addressing regarding that monument in Portsmouth.
Well, Jose, that monument has been standing there prior to the turn of the century, and as I told a sitting city council member back in 2015 after the Charleston shooting, that monument in Portsmouth is unique because it is a tombstone more so. It has, of course, become a lightning rod, and my comments within 6 hours of that event happening back on the 10th was to say that our city leadership has kicked the can down the road and they just couldn't kick it any further. And something could have been done back in June, and I think leadership just did not take and do the right thing back then. Yes, it's protected by both state law and also by federal law, because it is considered an historic landmark in its own right. But I think there was many missed opportunities for the city leadership to do the right thing. And here we have what we have today.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. I like your answers are really kind of short and sweet there, Tony. All right. That's one thing I like about Portsmouth. When you go to Portsmouth, a lot of the answers are right to the point. They're short and sweet. They're not necessarily sugar-coated. I worked in Portsmouth for about 14 years, really kind of cut my educational teeth there. So I really appreciate that about you. Would you say that's the nature of P-Town?
You know, Portsmouth has a very strong underlying pride, and of course, living in the beach for 10 years myself and graduating from First Colonial High School back in '91, I came back to Portsmouth because I knew that there was a lot of opportunity, not only in business but also just being part of a centralized regional powerhouse that once was. So when you talk to the people of Portsmouth, which a lot of times are referred to as the Portsmouth family, they all have a serious amount of pride, and they come across very strong. That is a very strong feeling, and people pick up on that.
All right, great. You're absolutely right. Well, Portsmouth has strategic properties that it owns, but sometimes some of these properties have drained city resources. So if you can give us an idea of what is a strategic property and what's your vision on Portsmouth potential on economic development through a bigger focus on infrastructure.
Well, that is one of my big features in my platform is infrastructure and how we have done a terrible job in maintaining infrastructure. Portsmouth probably has some of the most historical significant homes and also buildings in the 757 as well as in the state. It's always known as the Old Town is the largest collection of antique homes between Alexandria and Northern Virginia and Charleston, South Carolina. Our biggest focus here as far as strategic properties are concerned, everyone asks, why in the world does Portsmouth have a waterfront jail? And well, that is because that waterfront was not as desirable as it is today. It was actually wharfs and railroad property, and unfortunately back in the 50s and 60s they had to condemn that property to take it for public good. So that is the reason why we have that jail. But now it's not the highest and best use for the property and truly needs to be taken and looked at seriously. And this past year, I think we were going through the process of working with Amada Hoffler right out of Virginia Beach to put in a wonderful facility there, replace City Hall, and create some housing or apartment living. And it ended up going sideways, and unfortunately by our leadership, I think the leadership failed in keeping it on track. And so that's something that I bring to the table with the commercial development and commercial real estate experience, that we feel like there's room for improvement, and quite frankly, the deal that was started there was actually approached in almost going backwards.
I'll follow up. Last year, Portsmouth Mayor John Rowe wanted to create a group called Portsmouth Cultural Harmony Committee, made up to 16 to 22 citizens looking to help social justice, equal opportunity in all aspects of life, and cross-cultural understanding. To my knowledge, that doesn't exist. Would you like to help them make it so?
Well, and it's interesting how you say it doesn't exist, because quite frankly, there was not a lot of effort put into marketing it. Even for myself, I didn't hear enough about it, even living and being in part of the city's fabric of activities. I can tell you one thing that I do have of course looked at, and that is the state and the governor has signed into law the Minority Business Commission, and that being a statewide effort to create a pipeline directly into the General Assembly. And a few localities have taken him up on the lead of creating business commissions as their own, and that is something I would look at doing as mayor. It's almost like a blue ribbon committee.
Okay, great. Right now, I want to take a minute. We're going to do a business shout out, and contrary to other times, I know a lot of times I come with a lot of food businesses that sponsor us, but today we're going to do a little twist. Today our sponsor is Sassy Nails and Tanning Spa. It's over on 1940 Laskin Road. It's a great place for you ladies to go get your nails done. I mean, they have awesome technicians there. You got to call, and now with COVID, you got to do everything by appointment. So stop in and see your girl Stephanie at Sassy Nails and tell her Jose and the Beach Brothers sent you, or give them a ring. Their number is 757-422-0770. Okay, and now, Tony, my next question for you, sir. The Beach Brothers highlights both Virginia politicians and businesses, and we do it on purpose. A testimonial on your page points out you, Mr. Goodwin, will work hard for Portsmouth small businesses, and you understand the need for a vibrant downtown. Describe how you envision your role in doing that.
Well, one of the things that, as being a member of the best class ever of the Hampton Roads leadership, lead Hampton Roads, the essay for getting me into the class was identifying the fact that since I live right here in the downtown area, we're right in the middle of Hampton Roads. And when you look at basically the center point of the entire region, 38 square round circumference of 38 miles around the cities and counties of Hampton Roads, Portsmouth falls almost directly in the middle. And so downtown, as far as I'm concerned, is a jewel, and it is opportunity for both Norfolk, Portsmouth, Virginia Beach, Chesapeake, and Suffolk to be the interlinking connector. And we do have some challenges, as do any urban areas in the country. But we do have one thing that we feel very strong about, it is our military influence, both not only from the Navy to our south of downtown, which is the Naval Shipyard, the U.S. Naval Hospital to our north, and the Coast Guard base that's also here in downtown. So that puts a lot of foot traffic on our streets for our businesses, restaurants. But to create more living and rooftops, that's what's next in our plan to make downtown a more vibrant and more attractive city for residents as well as visitors alike.
I tell you, my wife grew up here in the Hampton Roads area. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, then I moved to Columbus, Ohio, came here to attend Hampton University, the great Hampton University. But my wife grew up here, and she tells me of a time where they in Norfolk and Virginia Beach used to leave Norfolk and Virginia Beach to do shopping in Portsmouth. And that's just not the case anymore. I would actually say the opposite in some cases is the case. If you're going to help bring back the businesses and the commerce to Portsmouth, how long would that take? I know that's not something that can be done in 4 years. Any thoughts on how long that would take and what it would really take to make Portsmouth the hub of business that it once was on this side of the water?
Well, that being the case, part of the reason why I got into the commercial real estate business is I studied very closely the concept of mixed use development, where you have residents living on top of commercial businesses and in the same building. And if you'll notice, you don't build shopping malls anymore. You don't build Lynn Haven Mall. You don't build Pembroke Mall. You don't build MacArthur Center. And that's not just a pattern that's happening here in Hampton Roads, but that's also happening across the globe, where shopping malls are not being built. Now, if you look at shopping centers are another issue. Well, shopping centers are small, boutique, small spaces. They're not building big box retailers anymore. And it's even more evident now from this pandemic that you're buying your stuff online. And that meaning that I feel like the small business owner and the small boutique shops are going to be coming back with a vengeance, because people are not accustomed to just buying everything online. They've got to touch it. They've got to feel it. They got to make sure that it fits. And they're going to come back to these small boutique shops, and everyone's going to benefit from this. The only difference is that the model where you have residential up above commercial, it makes bankable sense. Residential housing in an urban setting like this, or even a new designed town center concept, typically runs about $18 to $25 per square foot on an average. Now, that doesn't mean that you're paying $18 to $25 a square foot for your residential condo or apartment in town center of Virginia Beach. You're actually paying almost $35 to $40 a square foot, but it is location, location, location. But that being the case, the number of residents that you have in one building and sharing the same roof, it doesn't necessarily put as much struggle on maintaining that dollar amount for the commercial space downstairs. But there is a benefit to having a captioned audience. And if you've got an apartment, if you've got an apartment above that business downstairs, chances are you're going to have Jimmy John's a little bit more often, or the local coffee shop that's on that first floor. And you're not going to own a coffee maker, because you're going to go downstairs and you're going to buy their $5 drink.
You're right. And one of the things about Portsmouth is you have the area of Craddock. And if I'm going off the top of my memory, because I used to work at Craddock Middle School, and before it was Craddock Middle School, it was Alf J. Mapp Middle School, and I worked there as well. And I remember a sign that said, "Welcome to Craddock, America's first planned shopping center," or something like that. I mean, so you have a historic situation there where those small boutique shops really could come back with a historical vengeance. And I used to go to David's and David's too on High Street when and that has a mixed situation, because I think at the very top are apartments, and we used to party hard below until the city shut it down. The city shut it down. So any thoughts about nightlife entertainment? And I know we didn't mention that in the early part of our conversation, but any thoughts on nightlife really returning? I mean, I know you have, what's the name of that restaurant? Roger Brown's. And you have a couple of others on High Street. But I mean, P-Town used to have a lot of party spots, and then they were all shut down by the city. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I don't necessarily think they were shut down by the city. They just got to the point where they were unruly, that the community or the surrounding neighbors was not going to put up with it anymore, based on the fact, hey, if you go into a place that the music's blaring and you have a few drinks, you're coming out and you're going to talk to the guy 5 feet away from you like you're talking to him at the end of the ball field. And that's what happens. That's really what happens. And quite frankly, I feel like that, commercial real estate agents that deal with mixed use get that. They have to cohabitate their residents with their businesses. And but when you've got real estate agents or commercial real estate agents that only know a shopping center, he has no clue of what it's going to take and what type of business is going to be put down there and actually blend with their neighbors. But go back to Craddock a little bit. What's interesting, and this is going to be your Jeopardy question for the night, is if you didn't know, Craddock is actually named after a revered naval officer. And then if you actually look at Google Earth or Google Maps and or any map service that gives you a satellite view of the neighborhood, the streets are actually aligned and designed on purpose in the shape of an anchor. So the entire neighborhood actually looks like an anchor from the sky, from the aerial shots. And in the middle is Afton Square. And Afton Square is that originally first original planned shopping center in the country. And so there's a lot of history there. It's an historical district, one of 5 residential historic districts in the city. And it contributes to basically workforce housing of its time for the shipyard. And it has a lot of charm, a lot of character, and again, as I refer to it, a lot of Portsmouth pride is in that neighborhood. There is opportunity all over the place over there, where the old former Craddock High School that was sitting on Route 17 on George Washington Highway has been removed, and there's housing that's finally, and I'll say this, finally being built. It's been a long process to get that done, but it's finally coming together. That's only going to help the case for Craddock to be attractive to new home buyers. So some of the original homes are being renovated and restored. They of course have plenty of incentives and opportunities for that when it comes to tax credits for historic homes. And quite frankly, there's some of those that are also being repurposed, and new homes are being built in under a pattern book that the city actually has that says, hey, we have five historic matching homes. Here's the plans. Enjoy, go build it at no cost. Build the home. Here's the plans, no cost to you. But these are the plans that you can work with that will already kind of be pre-approved to fit into the neighborhood. And not many people realize that's available to them. That's about a $1,500 savings, if not more, just to have a set of drawings handed to you and said, hey, go build this house in this community, and it's already ready to go. And it's interesting. It's interesting how some of these incentives or processes have actually fallen to the wayside, but because again, shinier objects seem to distract people from doing things, and that's a great tool for a builder who wants to come in and build 4 or 5, maybe even 10 houses inside of a community like that with established communities with grown trees instead of having to plant trees to make it a neighborhood. So,
that's really intriguing. Since I do private money lending, I need to find somebody who wants to bring who wants to do some properties there in Portsmouth.
It takes a lot of the guessing game out, and as far as the due diligence for anybody who's looking, you can't say that that's not a great tool for somebody at a bank that says, hey, it's already taken the guessing game out for us. Here's where we can make this happen.
Okay. Well, COVID-19 is building in Hampton Roads according to the numbers, and hospitals are taking in more and more patients. So relative to the general population, the Black and Latino people are succumbing to the disease at a higher rate. And P-Town is 50% or higher melanated, 53% Black city. Do you have any recommendations and ideal for stronger health care in the beloved city of Portsmouth, Virginia?
So here's your history lesson for a bit. And not many people know that the Children's Hospitals of the King's Daughters was actually started right here in Portsmouth, right beside the Naval Hospital, which is the oldest medical facility in the country. Again, another first for Portsmouth. And so we have a strong relationship with the Navy in the medical industry, in the medical field. So that takes care not only of our citizens here in the city of Portsmouth, but from all over Hampton Roads, because let's face it, military is one of our biggest tourism, or not, excuse me, military is our biggest economy drivers in the 757. So what I would say is, to today's standards, is that we do have a medical facility here called Maryview. Many people know it's gotten a bad name, bad rap from multiple sales over time.
And for decades, it's had a bad name, yeah.
And I've had a lot of friends, a lot of family members in that hospital back when it was a good hospital, an award-winning hospital, and a lot of family members that were born at that hospital as well. But
it was called Murder View for a while.
Well, yeah, and I let other people say that, not necessarily myself, but I do feel like Maryview has lived its life, and I feel like that Mercy Hospitals, who owns it, has seen that they're feeling the same thing that Bon Secours prior to that felt like, that they wanted to pull the facility out, mainly because of the fact that it wasn't profitable for the system. So what ended up happening is that most businesses, or most healthcare, has been moving over to the Harborview area, which that in turn creates some challenges as well, because then it takes away from a big population. The population is actually missing some health care down around the Victory Boulevard and Victory Village area. That's creating some challenges as well. So some opportunity is there, I think, based on this pandemic. The pandemic is going to open up a lot of eyes at the federal level, and that I think there's shovel-ready projects available to create a potential new hospital here in Portsmouth, and I think the time is right for us to be again in the front seat and coming out of this pandemic with some true opportunities for us.
Will increasing the commerce in Portsmouth lead to attracting other facilities that can provide medical services?
Oh, most definitely. You've got 4 major hospital services available. Centera being the biggest, Bon Secours, and Mercy. Then you also have Chesapeake Regional and Riverside up on the peninsula, and I think that all 4 of those in the private sector should be seriously looking at Portsmouth, because in the world of commercial real estate, everything works in circles. We have central circles where businesses place themselves so they don't overlap and create too much services in one area or hurt each other. So as I have identified, there's opportunity where potentially a new hospital can be built in this city. And when you talked about the population of 53% Black Americans here in this city, it's also known, and this is a disturbing first for Portsmouth, is that the cancer rates in our population here in this city are some of the highest in the state. And Centera has already identified this as being a serious problem, where cancer patients can be by 2030, we'll be looking at a 30% increase in cancer patients. Hence the reason why over at Centera Lee on Virginia Beach Boulevard, they built the new Cancer Institute just to keep up pace. And I don't believe that's even enough at this point to be in pace with the patient percentages that are going to be going up and through the roof in the next few years.
Tony, we talked about Craddock, and I know another neighborhood, Port Norfolk, has a lot of pride in local businesses and historic homes. How would these neighborhoods benefit under you as mayor, because they're almost towns within themselves?
Port Norfolk was where I first, when my wife and I moved here in 2000, we lived in a little place called River Park, which is sandwiched between Mount Herman and Port Norfolk. Historically, it's a smaller homes portion of the neighborhood, but Port Norfolk, when it was built, had large Victorian homes around the turn of the century, and almost has that same feel where you have a village where businesses were able to thrive. A supermarket, Lee's Hot Dogs was there for years. That created a nice down home feel. But again, Port Norfolk being another one of our historic districts in the city, and I'm a firm believer in historic districts and historic incentives, and can be truly another jewel in the city's opportunities for communities.
Now, I posted a video on my Facebook today of rabbits near my Jetta. After they moved away, I got in my Jetta and I drove to work. A Jetta I got from the Southern Volkswagen, Chesapeake, located at 1248 South Military Highway. Folks like Cynthia Rawlings and Charlie Roy provided me a car I could safely get to my hospitality job at the oceanfront, as well as hospitality for nearby slumbering rabbits. If you're looking for a good car to get you to and from great places of hospitality, then go to Southern Volkswagen. And the Beach Brothers also know Mr. Goodwin has a hospitality history too. What does leadership focused on tourism mean, and what would it mean for Portsmouth?
Well, my history, as well as anyone from living in Virginia Beach for any length of time, was a lot of people worked at the Cavalier Hotel, and so did I, from about 1989 to about 1993. And that was the direction that I was headed. I was headed to hospitality industry management. And so I worked my way around through the hotel under the home of the owners, the Dixons, who owned it at the time. And of course, I'm gracious to see that Mr. Bruce Thompson, of course, saved the original hotel, and with the help of the community in the city of Virginia Beach, I think it was, again, another piece of my history as far as being a history buff and seeing things like the Cavalier being restored into its present crown jewel for the oceanfront once again. So tourism is the third largest industry in Hampton Roads: military, port, and tourism. And rightfully so, because when you take Williamsburg as being the mecca of capital, the mecca colonial capital of the country, and its interpretation of how colonial America was started, and then add that to the Virginia Beach oceanfront and all that it does. And then one thing everybody really, I think, leaves out is the power or the powerhouse of the old Outer Banks. People that go to the Outer Banks that spend a lot of money to live in these cottages for a week typically are coming from up in the Northeast and coming right through our neighborhoods and right here through Hampton Roads to get there. And that means that they basically are either looking for somewhere to eat, somewhere to take a break, or a rest on their travels, and potentially a rainy day opportunity. So Portsmouth has a lot of small venues and facets that can contribute to day tripping, as what we like to call it, or potentially an overnight stay, depending on how they travel. Now, Portsmouth of Kin, I'll refer to the largest collection of antique homes between Alexandria, Northern Virginia, and the Charleston area. And Charleston thrives on its history and builds a big business around that tourism. So when you're talking about Virginia Tourism Corporation basically having a $26 billion industry in the state of Virginia, you're creating that's where most of that is happening, is right through the Williamsburg and Virginia Beach market. And Norfolk, of course, adds to that. But I feel like Portsmouth is ripe for the picking and being part of the 757 tourism solution. And we can add that as another piece to the tourism dollar. And it's low-hanging fruit. I feel like we don't do enough to make that happen. So we definitely want to make that part of it's part of my plan as far as being mayor and leading us into the next new economy after this pandemic.
Okay, now let's say the Beach Brothers were looking for a new watch, and we do our research. We find out Tally and Twine has great 757 made watches. Now we'd leave from Virginia Beach and get on I-64's loop around Norfolk and craftily maneuver to avoid the tolls from Norfolk to Portsmouth. Your interests are a strong business sector, a strong infrastructure. As mayor candidate, do you think those tolls are putting up burdens to both?
quite frankly, at the end of the day, I thought, for what we have today, I wish they never took the tolls off in 1982, 87 when they were only a quarter, because I think we'd all be well off with only paying a quarter to get to Portsmouth and Norfolk, vice versa. There was a lot of folks that believed that the West was best. Virginia Beach had built itself out, Norfolk had kind of built itself out, and Suffolk is where it was all growing. So Portsmouth was going to take advantage of that opportunity. Not so much, because let's face it, when this proposal came across for this public-private partnership to take over the downtown and midtown tunnels, and really just use it as a concessionaire for 58 years. At an increasing rate of almost 13% a year, it was a hard thing to swallow. So we wanted to make sure that everyone knew that. I was part of the fight as a citizen to make sure that everyone knew that it was not a good deal for Hampton Roads as a region, because not only did it create this barrier between two communities, but it also set the pattern for the way we're going to continue to operate and travel throughout Hampton Roads, because it also dictates tolls on other facilities all over the 757. So with that learned and knowing what we have today, there are opportunities that I feel like as leadership and in my plans as mayor will unify back to the Hampton Roads leaders and put in place a potential connector that will not necessarily need the tolls, and that is where we can be creative with multimodal transportation and really creating a system or transportation network that is made for the ages.
Excellent. I'm an educator as well as an investor, and so I shared earlier that I cut my educational teeth in Portsmouth. I started off at S.H. Clark, which became Craddock Middle School, and then I was transferred to Hunt Matt Middle School. I then started working as a teacher at S.H. Clark Elementary School, and my last years in Portsmouth, I taught at your daughter's high school. I'm a trucker.
Okay.
High school. Yeah. So salute to the truckers out there. So I'm really interested in education. I actually ran for the school board in 2018. So as recently as March, the city manager proposed a budget that was more generous for schools than even the superintendent asked for. And then COVID happened. So what are your plans for education? What are your thoughts on education? Do you support the school system's plan in their opening in the 2020-2021 school year? Should the school system get more money? Was the superintendent's request too low? Was the city manager's proposal too high? What are your thoughts on education in the city of Portsmouth?
Well, it's going to be interesting how this shakes out. The city council, by the leadership of our city manager, adopted a new funding formula, which that is what created that extra funding. When COVID happened and they shut the school down, one of the conversations I had with a present present school board member, as well as now and also running for city council right now, is that when it's all said and done at the end of the year, what they don't use in the school budget is reverted back to the city council, because the council basically sets the funding, in this case funding formula, but of course they set that ball in motion where the schools get so much money over the course of the year, and at the end of the year any surpluses are actually returned back to the city. Now that can sometimes be a double-edged sword, but I told him flat out, I said, based on the fact that you're not running buses and you're not spending money on gas and you're not doing this and that and this and that, I said, you're going to see that the city is going to, the school board is going to be giving back almost $3 million back to the city at the end of the day. And he said, how do you figure that? I said, well, just simple. You just do this, 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 and this. And then you look at what your costs are here. And sure enough, it was about $3 million at the end of the school year that they were putting it back. Now, there was some, even though the city had already approved the budget with the funding formula that gave them a little extra at the end of the day, but that $3 million, they worked it in a way to where they were actually still going to be able to keep that extra because they knew that there was going to be a need for restructuring how school was going to start, if it was even if it was going to start, which we are now in the process of asking parents and teachers what they think is going to be the best way to do things when it comes to getting back into these schools. So the jury's still out to see how this is all going to play out. I think there's going to be a need for more money, more funding. So hopefully that $3 million that they had as a surplus now will come back and take care of increased busing for keeping kids with social distancing. Because I really think the buses are going to probably run nonstop all day because they're just going to be shuttling kids around if they can.
Yeah. How did your daughter fare with the school closure? What year is she?
She's going into 8th grade at Church.
Okay.
So, and she is a proud Churchland trucker. I never thought I would have a Churchland trucker, even though when our family lived in Chesapeake in Western Branch, we were Bruins, and then moved again to the oceanfront, and I was Virginia Beach and tried and true there. So she turned around and her and her cousin both are like very much almost like sisters. So both of them sat there and watched the news broadcast when they said school was closing, done, period, this is the end for the year. And in fact, both of them sat there and teared up and cried about it because they were like, we don't get to see our kids, we don't get to see our friends, we don't get to see our kids.
Right.
She was, at first very, they were awestruck to what the situation was, but they warmed up to what they could get virtually. And that was, Zoom classes and Zoom things. But, the population or the school resources were limited. So, you only had, if any, you probably had maybe 15% of the population, of the school population, actually taking on the virtual classes. I've heard since they're doing this survey from the teachers and parents alike. I've heard that they are saying the teachers have already seen the training sessions that they have and the tools that they'll have for virtual class training. So the response has been fairly good because they just didn't have the tools so suddenly to do this. So I think they're feeling comfortable that what's available to them now is going to be a lot more participative by these students, by these kids. We just need to make sure that they have either the hardware and the Wi-Fi access. That's just the next challenge in some of our community. But these kids may not have access to the right more than a phone. But Chromebooks are conversation because they use them in the schools as well. But we just need to be very proactive in making sure that these kids have access to the tools they need to be able to learn on a more appropriate and structured level.
I have one question left, coming back to the economy, of course. Let's look back at startups. You're noted for being instrumental in finding an office for a new startup or helping a chain find a new home on High Street, and always working to bring positive industry to Portsmouth. Will minority business owners also have a fair shot at their American dream in a Tony Goodwin-led Portsmouth?
Yes, they will at all avenues. I'm a firm believer in a rising tide raises all ships approach. There are incentives galore in this city, and a lot of them are not even tapped. Either it be hub zone addresses that businesses or people can come in and put their business here and hire with inside that zone. We were just talking with someone today about that, and that typically brings not only the business owners, the minority business owners, but it also brings to the community that is predominantly minority residents the access to good living wage jobs. You know, every community has a number of service industries and your convenience stores, your fast food restaurants, your restaurants as well, to where they do what they need to do to get people through either school or to the next step in life. But I really feel like our number one goal is to be a catalyst for small businesses. Historically, for almost 260 some odd years, this city has been built on small business, specifically on High Street, but all over the city. And we can do that once again with the right leadership and emphasize that the incentives are available not only from the local Office of Economic Development and our leadership down at there with Robert Moore, but also our state and federal incentives that are available. And that, not to say it's a bad thing, but Virginia Beach doesn't have access to hub zones. They have access to a lot of things, but they don't have access to hub zones. So these are things that I think that are important to coddle a new business and bring the jobs that are so needed for our citizens in this community.
Okay. Intriguing. What's one last thing you'd like to leave with the citizens of Portsmouth who have the chance to vote for you or someone else? What's something they need to really know, a driving point?
Well, being down here and working in this community for over a quarter of a century myself, either in business development and understanding and learning the history, to be able to use the tools necessary to bring this city forward. I was involved with a lot of visions and planning that was happening back in the mid 90s all the way up until 2000, 2005. And then somewhere around 2007, 2008, we started to lose focus and lose the drive or the vision that was necessary to keep the city competitive. So my realization is to bring back that vision and actually apply all the necessary steps to keep it on pace and on focus. And again, not wait until 5 or 6 years away from this restart. We're on the precipice of the largest economic reset in modern history. And when things are going to open up, we need to be right there in the front seat with shovel-ready projects. We need to be right there in the front seat knowing that we need people in good-paying jobs. We need new healthcare opportunities for healthcare, because I think the feds are going to send money down the pipeline to make sure we don't have another worry of having to figure out how to flatten this curve, so we don't be overwhelmed in our healthcare industry. And Portsmouth is sitting here prized and ready to answer the call for the region, as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to Chesapeake, Suffolk, and Portsmouth. So that's where I stand with bringing full leadership to this city, and quite frankly, as my slogan will say, Portsmouth deserves a good win for mayor.
All right, Portsmouth deserves a good win for mayor. Hey, hopefully, Mr. Mayor, do you have a Tally and Twine watch?
I do not have a Tally and Twine watch, but I've been watching the slides come up here pretty often, and I'm kind of eyeing the blue ones.
Right. So you can go to tallyandtwine.com. They're one of our sponsors, and they're built there in Portsmouth.
Oh,
so,
really?
Manufactured in Portsmouth. So look them up, tallyandtwine.com, and support Portsmouth's own. Yeah, beautiful. Hey, we thank you for being on the show. Any last words, Conrad and Jose?
Greatly thank Mr. Goodwin for coming on tonight and explaining his thoughts on his vision of Portsmouth. We're all great visionaries here, over in Virginia Beach, all of us here at the Beach Brothers. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming on, and we'll see you guys next time.
All right, gentlemen. Another one is in the books. Another great show is in the books. Yeah, I kind of like Tony. I really
Mhm.
kind of like Tony, man. He's a
Really got a short
businessman who
mind.
wants to bring business back to the city of Portsmouth. And I tell you, man, I love the city of Portsmouth. You know, I worked there for over 14 years. I cut my teeth there educationally in business. I remember when the Renaissance just opened up. I probably met Tony then
Wow.
because my business, my disc jockey business, was going crazy during that time period. And I want to say after the Renaissance first opened, about 3 months after it opened, I started doing a lot of events there. So I probably ran into him there, man. It's a good conversation. Good conversation. Any last words before we close out, Conrad?
Well, again, I'm glad he came on, and as we can see here, we're having a really good night, and I really want to look forward to a really good election season going forward. So just hop on Charles Conrad Chesverna II and go to his Facebook page, like his page, and drop a donation by at raisethemoney.com/cchesverna.
Okay, want to remind everybody that the Beach Brothers Show is a Virginia business and politics show. So if you're interested in appearing on the show, get in contact with Conrad Chesventer. He's the person that does our booking. If you'd like to have your business highlighted, the same way that we highlighted Tally and Twine and these beautiful watches, which are built in the city of Portsmouth, I know that Tony Goodwin is going to go after a nice blue watch. All right, good stuff, good stuff, good stuff. And also, I'm the Seko Varner that produces our show. I would love to see you on our show. If you have any information or any questions about the credit repair services, then, check in the information below. Conrad is running for Virginia Beach City Council. Check into his information. And for those who are interested in doing business with the city of Portsmouth, Tony mentioned that there are some great opportunities where people can do some great things in terms of housing. I can help with some of that private money lending. And look at that smile on Tony's face. He knows real estate. He knows that business needs to happen. He's going to bring that business to the city of Portsmouth. So check him out and check out some great private money while you go after some of those real estate deals. And we thank you for watching the Beach Brothers Show. Take care. Jose, last words?
Keep it beachy.
There you go. Take care of each other, and we'll see you next time in the next show. Virginia Beach #1.
All right. Keep it beachy.
There you go.
Beachy.